This video is a continuation of my ongoing project to recreate Danielle de Barbarac's ball gown from the 1998 film Ever After. Please check the description box for previous episodes. Today we pick up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, at the home of my friends Anna and Kevin. They are very unique people who deserve more than a paragraph. Kevin's primary interest is in theology, and he currently works with an antique religious bookseller. But he's also a musician who used to run a venue called the Black Sheep for all of the emo kids in our hometown. Anna lived in Japan for 5 years before meeting Kevin, and now she works with international university students and gets to travel the world routinely. Anna is the one who first took me antiquing and taught me how to appreciate the beauty of old things, the artistry and care that once went into even the most mundane of items. They moved to Lancaster 6 months ago, and this visit is something that I'd been looking forward to all summer. The first day of my trip was a work day for Anna, so I had a good chunk of time to work on my own projects. I started with finishing up the hand stitching on my bodice. If you remember, I had started sewing down the raw edges of the neckline and the arm size, but now I also decided to top stitch along the front and back princess seams. Both of these seams will be eventually covered by trim, so I'm not worried about the stitching showing. I just think that tacking these seams will help the bodice to lay nicer and reduce the amount of fraying and damage that these seams have to take before I add a lining, which is still a long ways off.
Okay, here's what we've got right now. So, the top edge, I think, looks great. Trimming it down was definitely a good decision. It just made it light and almost seamless feeling. I have no idea why I trimmed down this underarm area, though. That I should not have done. I don't know why I did that. I just wasn't thinking. And then this seam right here, I stitched all the way here, up over the armband, and then down the back side. This I did not trim down, and it does feel good and sturdy. I also, as a final step, I whip stitched down the strap to kind of keep this nice and just feeling really solid. So I have a few different options for what I want to work on next. I could do the beading on the bodice, or I could work on patterning the sleeve. I could work on patterning / cutting out the overskirt, or I could work on embellishing the trims. I think I want to hold off on the trims just because I don't have quite everything I need to, and I'd rather just get that all done in one go. So really, I think it's going to be the sleeve.
The original dress sleeves had 4 tiers. Tier 1 is a gathered puff of crinkle organza left over from the skirt. Tier 2 is a netting or bobinette embroidered with a whimsical scrolling vine. Tier 3 is another organza puff, and Tier 4 is also bobinette, embellished with starburst flower appliques. The bobinette parts are lined with a nude fabric that basically just looks like swimsuit mesh. Now, Tier 1 is tied up with thin cords, but Tier 3 has no cords, nothing visibly supporting it, which means that the whole sleeve is relying on just those 3 thin cords tied onto delicate lace. It's just a little sketchy. Look at how straight the lace sits. It doesn't look like much weight is on it. So my theory is that the nude mesh is actually lining those tiers as well. Basically, the whole sleeve pattern could be made and cut out as one piece of nude mesh and then just embellished to make the different tiers. So that's how I'm tackling it. I think that the pattern will essentially look something like this. A slight slope up across the strap of the sleeve, and then a deeper slope down to match the bottom curve of the arm side. Then the sleeve curved in to fit the arm, down to the forearm, which will be Tier 4. This tier scoops in around the wrists, fitting closely, and then flares out over the hands and ends in a beautiful little point. You can see that Tier 4 has 2 seams. Rather than a single seam at the base of the arm like most modern sleeve patterns, there is a seam on each side of the arm. On the back side of the arm, the seam is open at the bottom and closed with hooks and eyes to allow the hand access through the fitted wrist part. My plan is to sew the front seam as sort of a dart, angling out and ending somewhere inside tier number 3, where it will be hidden and covered by the organza. So that's my plan. Now how to actually enact it. I did bring some scrap knit with me on the trip. It had a similar weight and amount of stretch as my nude knit, which is a very important thing when patterning anything knit. It also has a waffle design, which is helpful for keeping the grain line straight, and for cutting it straight when you're working in an environment without all of your standard tools and rulers. I didn't really plan that, but it was a happy accident. But anyways, I cut a good sized rectangle out of that, and then lined up the top edge with the strap of my mock-up and basted them together by hand. When I was done, it looked like this. Not much yet. I trimmed down the length a bit, and then started trying to pin around my arm to get it into more of a fitted tube shape. I found this basically impossible to do with one hand, but hey, that's the great thing about having friends around. By this time, Anna was back from work, so I just had her pin it on me. Then we were hungry, so that's all I had time for. However, another exciting thing happened that evening. We went downtown for dinner and happened to pass an actual bead shop called the Beadworks. I'm a small town. We don't have bead shops. We barely have a bead aisle. I'm usually limited to online, which it's nice that we have access to all of these things nowadays, but the problem is that I never get to see them in person until after I buy them. So of course we saw this bead shop and I had to go in. The shop had many beautiful things, including a whole section of Miyuki beads, with the exact crystal delica beads in size 8 that I still needed to embellish one of my laces. So when we got back to their place after dinner, I was super excited and got right on it. The lace I'm working on is this large open scallop here at the base of Tier 1. The size of the scallops has a really interesting effect when paired with the organza, because it allows the organza to peek and puff right through it. And even better, the lace is incorporated into the functionality of the dress by the sleeve cords passing through the scallops. Finding the right lace for this was an absolute booger, but in the end, this is what I bought. It's not a perfect match, but with some alterations, I think it'll work well enough. But that's not all. The lace is beaded with tiny tubular glass beads, for which I bought the Miyuki beads, with faceted silver beads at the corners. Those I found at Hobby Lobby.
authentic Amish pizza.
Oh. Here. All the buttons.
So we went to Zink's fabric outlet, which was good, if not exactly life-changing. The prices were decent. Most of the fabrics I bought from them averaged $5 to $7 per yard. There was a ton to choose from, however, most of it was not the type of fabric I'm usually interested in. Most of it was polyester or just generally low quality. However, I did find some scores. I bought some nice lightweight cottons. I found a nice cotton flannel shirting and a rib knit. I got a wool blend, though I have no idea what the actual wool content is. There were several other wool tweeds that I liked, however they all came on 15-yard bolts, which is a lot to invest in fabric of dubious quality, and I didn't think that I would have room in my suitcase anyways, so I passed on all of that, unfortunately. But I'm happy with the fabrics that I did buy. Then we went to the Screaming Lion Antiques, which has nothing to do with anything, but it was wild.
Look at all of these lions, jeez!
Wow.
Oh, and then we went to Fox Meadows Creamery, which was honestly the best ice cream I've ever had in my life. So you didn't get to see much of it, but between everything, I kept working on the scalloped lace beading, and by the end of the day, they looked like this. I did have to alter my beading pattern slightly from the original to accommodate the differences in my lace. But essentially, I did an arc of the Mimieux beads around the inner edge of the scallop, and then I sewed Mimieux beads in the center of each flower, with a metal bead at the peak and the valley of each scallop. This day was very special. I didn't work on the dress at all, but I'm counting it anyways because we went to the lace place. It almost didn't happen. Since COVID, they only open by appointment, during strict hours only a few days a week. I finally got a hold of someone who worked in the adjoined Amish tablecloth shop, who got a hold of the lace place owner, who agreed to come in for us on an off day since I wasn't going to be in town long enough to make an appointment during her regular hours. But she was very helpful. She kept bringing boxes up from the basement to see if there was anything else that I wanted. I rarely get the opportunity to see crafting supplies in person except for what Johannes has to offer, so even just walking up and down the rows feeling the lace was a real privilege. The quality of her lace is wonderful, and she had a great selection of my favorite kind of lace. Very delicate and detailed. The great news is that most of her stock is available online and for good prices. Now that I know how lovely her lace is, I will not hesitate to order online from her in the future.
Okay, and if it doesn't, it would be coated in another. I can use that. Actually, I don't need much of this. I just needed some to pair with this, and it looks like it's the perfect color.
Sorry.
So I guess I never took any footage of it, but towards the end of my trip, the sequins I had ordered arrived at Anna's house. These are for the other lace trimming the sleeves. This lace was another challenge to find a good match for. In the end, I chose this Etsy listing, which isn't perfectly identical, but it is a pretty good match. This lace is embellished with clear sequins, seed beads, and pearls. Back home, I could only find iridescent sequins with pink and purple tones, which I didn't want, so I ordered clear faceted sequins from this Etsy shop. The seed beads are small glass beads with a silver lining that I pulled from my stash at home. And the pearls are 6mm plastic pearls that I bought from Joann's. I followed the pattern of the lace almost exactly. The only difference is that I added 4 seed beads to each dangling pearl instead of 3, because the lace is shaped slightly differently from the original, and with only 3 seed beads, the pearl just wasn't hanging down low enough. So yeah, now both of those laces are ready to go, as soon as the rest of the dress catches up.
Alright, well, this is my last day in Pennsylvania, and it's been a very successful vacation. A little bit too successful. I might need to borrow another suitcase. Last night I started beading this other type of lace. I was planning on working on the sleeve pattern more today, but I'm just kind of done. I'm very tired, and this will be much easier to do once I get home and I have my table and my actual sewing machine. So I think that this is where I'm going to call it quits for this segment of the video. I will see you back in Illinois.
So this video turned out to be mostly about lace. This was really a very hyping part of the project, as all of the lace and beads that I found and used were, if not a perfect match, so darn close that even I can't complain. Everything that I worked on came together beautifully, and it was so encouraging that I felt ready to finally start work on the embroidered overskirt. And you'll get to see how that turned out in the next video.